Awesome. We're live.
Woo!
So on today's episode is actually brought to you by Proven Recruiting. As an agency, Proven has helped thousands of technology professionals find new opportunities at exciting companies across the United States. They focus on the quality over quantity approach in terms of building lasting relationships with both their candidates and clients. And today we're actually joined by Proven Recruiting's managing partner, Kelly Feest. Kelly's here to share some valuable insights into the job market, hiring process, and interview tips. Welcome to Chasing Squirrels, Kelly.
Thank you.
So you want to give us, I'm most curious about how you actually landed at Proven and kind of the journey to get there and how you got into recruiting itself. So can you kind of give us some backstory and then we'll hop into Proven and what they're all about as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's not the most exciting story. I've been over here at Proven for 6 years. I was in sales for about 5 years after or before that. I think one thing that attracted me to the industry, which really plays into the topics we're going to be covering today, is the humanistic kind of making people your product as opposed to a product being a product. I remember when I did legal insurance and then skincare, I was always feeling like it was a one-sided sale, right? Like I'm trying to tell you why you need this product. Where in staffing, you get to approach someone who's looking for a job and you get to help a company that's looking for a team member. So it feels like a win-win. The relationships are high quality and it all comes full circle. So when I learned about that, I got excited and just gave it a shot. Honestly, I think a lot of people get into staffing maybe by accident or just giving it a try. And here I am 6 years later. So it worked out.
In those 6 years, were you ever client facing or have you kind of always been in the, I'm assuming you're in the managerial spot now based on your title. So were you ever face-to-face with the clients or how'd that journey go?
Yeah, so it progressed. Most people start at Proven Recruiting as a recruiter because you need to learn the industry and what the heck technology is and kind of progress through that. So same for me. My first year, I was a recruiter. And then I think maybe 18 months or 2 years in, I started to pick up some clients, again, just because of those good relationships and the maturity happening. And then 3 years in, I became an official manager, what you're alluding to, getting to support some of the new team members and help groom them on their journey. And now currently as a managing partner, I would say I don't have as many direct reports, but I manage or oversee the staffing department. So we're a team of 8 and I'm kind of the cog in kind of the spoke in the wheel, if that makes sense, like facilitating a lot of the relationships and engaging on the account side and with the clients and taking a more strategic approach.
I'm curious, when you got started as a recruiter, did you have kind of a distinct niche or selling point in order to get the clients as fast as you did?
No. I actually took a really honest new person approach, which I think a lot of people could appreciate. And I always tell my team members to do the same. As I was honest that I was new. When I was on the candidate side, I told them, I'm not an engineer. I'm here to help open doors and facilitate relationships. But you got to tell me what's going to make sense and kind of what they're excited about. And same with the clients. I never try to overstep my technical ability or pretend that I write code. I'm just here facilitating relationships and creating partnerships. So yeah, I keep it at that.
For those unfamiliar, can you kind of walk through the difference between an internal and external recruiter?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. And I think when people are on a job search, they realize those differences more often than not or sooner than later. An internal recruiter is working for a particular company, has a particular budget, and I would say is a little bit more of a admin or a facilitator, right? Because they're internal, they're helping to coordinate interviews, they're providing feedback. It's a little bit more geared towards the company. Where here at Proven, because we're an agency, we actually have our team divided where there's a handful of us that are looking just for those talented candidates and engineers. Then there's a handful of us that have the accounts. And we work a little bit less biasly or equally biased to the companies and the candidates because we're trying to make true matches based on both sides of the deal. So selfishly, the reason that the external agency or the external recruiter can provide that partnership is because they're financially tied to making a win for the candidate, just like they would be for the client. Where again, internally, it's just a little bit more focused and as it should be, right? You're internal, you're employed by that company. It makes sense, but they're a little bit more tied to the particular company and their budgets.
Just out of curiosity, do you guys ever work with internal recruiters?
We partner with them all the time. Yeah, they're great business partners. They actually help us in a lot of ways as far as facilitating scheduling, feedback, process, offers. They're really helpful at the offer stage, making sure to sell the benefits and the PTO and just the whole package that we're ultimately trying to present to someone. So yeah, I consider them very close business partners. They just aren't actively, most often, they aren't actively headhunting in the same way that we are externally. So that's honestly where we come in as a big value add to the companies, is that they don't have someone internal doing that. So we provide that manpower, and then we partner with their team to kind of facilitate the whole process.
I guess it makes sense as well, because you're looking for talent in specific niches, whereas they have a lot on their plate. They probably have to worry about hiring across the board.
Yeah, and sometimes the internal recruiter is the HR team member. So they're doing onboarding and a million other things. My twin sister's an HR professional, so I really understand and appreciate they do have a lot already on their plate, and adding an outbound headhunting effort is just a whole nother thing for them, which again is why we're excited to partner with them when we can.
Awesome. So let's say I'm a developer. I get recruiting messages often that I don't respond to because I just want to work with a quality agency. How would I go about like connecting in a reasonable way with somebody on your team, or just somebody in recruiting that kind of knows what they're doing, for sake of argument? Yeah.
Honestly, I think it kind of makes me think of real estate, right? Like, you're going to buy a house, it's a big transaction, big purchase. And you think of a friend that's in the industry, or you think of someone that knows someone in the industry. I think usually it's a pretty open market as far as like referrals or someone who's had a good experience. Once you get to Proven, for example, we have our team members divided into specialties. So if you're a data professional, just today I had a BI leadership candidate reach out to me, and I right away introduced him to Heather. She's our resident, like, all things data. She's got it. She understands it. She can really put things in motion for you. And if you're a mobile developer, then you're going to reach out to Katie, or we're going to want to introduce you to Maria. Or quality, it's Claudia. So kind of like you're saying, we try to provide like a real specialized partnership and relationship where it's not just run of the mill, trying to put pieces together, scrounging around. So definitely I'd say through a referral is where you're going to find a trusted partner. And then within that agency, hopefully there's someone that specializes in at least generally what you do, right? If you're a database developer, you might not want to be partnered with the full stack recruiter, for example.
I equate it a lot to real estate agents too, because it's really easy for them to say they're a real estate agent, right? Versus like actually having done it and knowing, like being the real estate agent you actually want to work with on your behalf.
Yeah. And actually, I think sometimes same comparison is that a lot of big real estate agencies are just playing the numbers game. They're just going to link you up to someone versus, a smaller, I don't know how to compare them for the real estate side, but same with recruiters, is that if you're working with a boutique agency like Proven, I mean, we're 30 people. So there's going to be a niche, there's going to be a relationship, and it's like we said in the intro, quality versus quantity for sure.
Are there some red flags to keep an eye out for if you're a candidate that you'd be able to identify, like maybe they're just collecting a bunch of resumes to provide to employers, or what are some things in working with a recruiter you should keep an eye out for as a candidate?
Yeah. And you know what, these are all great questions, because when I got started in staffing, I didn't know this industry existed. So I was kind of taking like a skeptical eye and like, what is this? Why haven't I ever, it's kind of a new thing for me. So looking back now, 6 years later, we always tell candidates, if any agency makes you pay for their services, it's not that it's a scam. It's just, it kind of makes me, that should be a red flag, I guess, like you're saying.
Pay for their services before they get hired, you're saying?
Yeah, or just at all.
Or at all.
Yeah, candidates don't pay us. We're facilitating the partnership that's been requested by the client. So the client's paying us. That should be well known, if not already. So if an agency's ever saying, hey, give us $1,000, we'll get your resume in a few doors, I would just be a little curious of like what doors they don't already have open. Like, why are they, again, you shouldn't be paying for that service from what I've experienced. Another red flag, like you said, if they have a lot of job postings up that are maybe a little bit old, if you can see the timestamp, it's not really a bad thing, but it is a good thing to explore of maybe making sure that those recs are current, or like you said, that they're not just pipelining. It's not bad to pipeline because you're building that relationship, whether the need is now or a year from now. I've placed people after meeting them 3 years ago. So like, it's not a bad thing to do, but it's good to make sure that you know, and that they're upfront. Hey, I don't have a rec for you right now, but that is a role that we worked 6 months ago. And if that's the type that you're a fit for, it's good for me to know. And then I can keep you in mind, right? So I think maybe along those lines, as long as the relationship feels transparent, right? Like they're not rushing to ask you about your comp or trying to push you into a rec that's not really a fit. If they're not listening to your needs, really, again, to be transparent, we don't get paid if you don't like the job. If a developer doesn't stay, we always have a guarantee in place. So if they don't stay and they're not happy, it's not a one and done, Proven gets paid and we move on. Really, again, the quality versus quantity. Most of my clients are repeat business, 4, 5, 6, 30 hirings over, a handful of years, 5 years, 10 years, really looking for that lasting partnership. So it's not in our best interest to just put a butt in a seat and then cross our fingers. So if you ever feel like there's just a little bit too much of an agenda, or again, they're not listening to your needs, then it's I don't know. I would just be curious. It's a red flag for sure.
So would the best time to start working with a recruiter kind of be when you're not really looking for a job, just so they can have an eye out kind of a deal? Because I know sometimes they probably all reach out when they're like, I need a job right now. Right?
Yeah. And you know what? That's the whole industry. Companies reach out to us when they have a need right now. And it's like, if we could just be a little more proactive. So that 100%, like you're saying, if it's never a bad idea, and maybe you're upfront with the recruiter too. Hey, I'm just being proactive. I'm not going to be on a search for another couple of months, but I'd love to partner with you. I'd love to get insight into the market. Really, you're gathering intel. As recruiters, we are on LinkedIn, on the job boards, talking to companies by the dozens every day. I mean, really, our team's probably pre-screening upwards of 2 to 3 dozen candidates even a day. So it's great intel to have, whether it's now or later. And yeah, you don't want to be in a reactive position then saying, hey, I'm unemployed, which I know sometimes is out of people's control. I know COVID showed us that. But if you had that partnership from a year ago, it's a lot easier to say, hey, Kelly, I'm on the market now, or I'm going to be on the market soon. I'd love to go back to that conversation. I just had a CEO reach out that actually had partnered with me 2 years ago. And he's like, hey, I'm looking for something new. I know that last partnership was great. I want to re-engage and see what you have for me. So yeah, it's the sooner the better, just to have them in your pocket. And I think you can also tell the recruiter, right? Like, this is not an active search for me yet. They're not going to bombard you, or my team, I can say they won't be bombarding you with, 6 or 7 jobs a week. It's looking for the right one. And honestly, last thing I'll say about that, it is so exciting to me when I partner with a candidate from a year ago, and a year later, something pops up and I'm like, this is a rec for that guy. This is a rec for that girl. And I'm so excited to call them back. And I wouldn't have that intel or that perspective if we hadn't built the relationship a year ago. So yeah, it's equally beneficial, I'd say, for everyone.
So if I'm a passive candidate right now looking for my next engineering role and I reach out to you, what is that? Do we have like a conversation? Do you code test me then? Like, what does that overall process look like right now? If I'm just looking passively and just kind of want to, have you start looking for me on my behalf.
Yeah. Passive for you equals passive for us. So if it's just an over, high level conversation of what your dream job would look like, that might be where I go with it. Of like, if you were wanting to make a move, or if there was something you could change, what is that for you? I want to collect the stats, like where you live, which is less of an issue now than ever, right? But if commute was involved, why again you're looking, or why you might be looking. We do want to make sure that the compensation is going to be competitive and exciting for you. But like you're saying, if it's passive for you, it's passive for us. We just want to make sure we know what that picture looks like for you, so that again, if we come across it, we can let you know. And if you become more active in your search, we're not starting from scratch. So the other thing I love to do, like if a candidate calls me like that, is I'll book a 30-minute window with them and I'll just brainstorm. They're telling me what they like. They're telling me the industries they've been in. They're pointing out different products they've been excited about. And my mind's going. Like, I'll make them a list. Sometimes I'll email them a list of those companies and say, hey, keep these on your radar. I can make you introductions there, but more than anything, like just have it on your radar and check stuff out. So yeah, it's just a conversation at whatever speed you're looking to go. And if stuff speeds up because you find something exciting, then so be it.
You brought up compensation. I just wanted to bring it up while I was in my head. When you guys actually, I know you're incentivized to get the candidate as much compensation as possible, essentially. And so do you typically negotiate that for the candidate, or do you have to coach the candidate, or does it depend on the company itself?
Yeah, great question. It depends on the company itself. Sometimes HR wants to be the front of that conversation. And even if they do, I honestly still take the approach of stepping in, or at least advise them of like, hey, sometimes candidates don't, it's a long answer, but imagine sometimes you've had this great interaction, you're to offer stage, and the offer that they give you is too low. I feel like the candidate gets put in a really tough situation of not wanting to come off as greedy or unappreciative or just negotiating. Just has a very different tone. And so I always encourage the clients that we want to give the candidate an opportunity to make this a comfortable experience, and we serve as that buffer. So if the candidate says to me, the offer is 10K low, or, hey, I was really looking for more stock than base, or whatever it is, it's easier for me to go to the client and say, hey, we're hoping for a little bit more here, or he's excited, but this would make him a little bit more excited. Like I can filter that and not make the candidate feel like they're having to, well, I mean, again, some candidates love it. Some candidates want to go to bat. They want to have the conversation, and that's okay too. I just think it's more, like you said, it's in our best interest to make sure everybody's happy and that ends meet. So if there's 5K on the table, I want to be able to tell the candidate, hey, let's get you an extra 5K. Or, hey, I know they've got a little bit of wiggle room on a sign-on, if that's something that we can do, right? So we want both ends to meet. We don't want to blow anyone's budget, but we also don't want to lowball candidate. So if you have a good partnership with your recruiter, it should just be a very open dialogue that we can then work together and make sure it feels right.
So I know you mentioned it kind of goes back to our real estate thing, right? It's why you don't let the people that own the house in the house while they're looking at it. So there's less emotion, and you guys can just focus on getting everybody's goals hit in the process, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you don't need to hear what I think about the wallpaper. Just
right, 100%. We're gonna take it down anyways.
Yeah.
So. What are some things, again, we'll go back to, I'm a passive candidate. I reach out to you. What are some things that in our conversation I could reveal to you or bring or kind of showcase to you that would make you excited to represent me versus, oh, this guy has a lot of red flags. I don't know if he's going to represent us very well when we're out finding talent.
Yeah. I think one thing I appreciate about candidates, and this is a great question because the market is really hot right now. So candidates want to make themselves marketable, not just to us, but to clients and companies. I really get excited about a candidate that takes notes about his or her ideal opportunity, because if we know what it looks like, we can find it. If we're chasing some like imaginary thing that no one has to find, then it's kind of haphazard and trial by fire. So the better they have their interest defined, which it's okay if they don't have it all defined. You know, if they're saying, hey, I'm curious what's out there, then, you know, let's define it together. So that's really helpful. I really also appreciate candidates that prepare for interviews. The ones that aren't open to prep make me a little nervous. Not that I don't think they're going to crush the development part, because that's certainly out of my control.
Right.
But if they're willing to spend 20 minutes with me to talk about, you know, a 50-50 split in a conversation, or talking about the STAR method when you're explaining an experience, or having some good questions prepared for the hiring manager, that's one easy. Like if a candidate says, oh, I don't have any questions for them, it'll be fine. I'm like, but they're going to ask if you have questions. And if you don't have, you know, like, I think the biggest angst or like just perspective for a candidate to remember with a recruiter is we do this all day. Like if a candidate hasn't interviewed in 5 years, use us because we just help 5 people interview today. Like it's just such a skill set that we're familiar with. So why not leverage us? Why not let us support you? And again, that true partnership, right? The only other thing I can think about is if someone has a little bit of questionable or short stints on their resume, you do want to be prepared to explain those. If it's a contract, great. If it wasn't a fit for you, great. It's not really what the issue or what the short tenure came from. It's more just making sure you're able to explain that, or, you know, like you said, pitch yourself or market yourself based on what your resume says.
I actually, in a previous life, had a coding bootcamp in San Diego. And so we sent, I believe, 3 or 4 junior engineers to this startup in Carlsbad. And the person they actually picked, they were like, they're all technically pretty beginner level. But she had an entire page of questions written down for us after the interview was over. And so we didn't even get to any of the questions except the first one. We just liked that she had them all written down. And that's why she got the job.
Yeah.
And she's still there like 4 years later.
And you know what? She got the information she needed to be excited about that too. So it's 2 ways. Like I tell people, write them down. Don't, have a pen. Don't be shy about it. You'd rather show, I tell them it shows interest and enthusiasm. If you're staring blank, I took notes even before our call today, like you got to be interested and engaged, and make sure that you're showing that. I think sometimes maybe to that point, like candidates get nervous to show their cards. Interest is not a card. I mean, you want the interest to be out there. You don't want anyone questioning if you're excited or if you're engaged or if you've done your homework, right? So better to show that than not. That's so great. Like I'm going to tell everyone that you can get a job just from having the questions written down.
Definitely happened. It was awesome. The from a practical standpoint, if I was to come to you and say, okay, here's my dream job, do they usually say like technologies they'd like to work with or industries they like to be? I imagine the uncreative people lead with kind of salary, which I know is important, but what's like a really good answer in terms of what are they looking for?
Yeah. I wish I could show you this really lame but effective thing that I give all the candidates that I work with. It's called the opportunity chart. It's just a spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It always feels really cool when I say that, but it has the different criteria to the left, and we always encourage people to order those or to like stack rank them. And it's fine if compensation is your number one, then let's make sure we're clear about what that is. But if the number one for you is technology or room for growth or industry, in the past it'd be commute. Whatever those criterias are, maybe it's helpful to stack rank them, because sometimes people will be surprised if really it comes down to the fact that compensation is number 3, or if it's number 1 or number 5, or, it just helps to be able to quantify those categories. And then, when they're saying what my dream job is, I want to know a mix of what's going to get you excited and also like what's a non-negotiable. Like if you don't want to work in healthcare, or you're not excited about retail, or you're turned off by DOD, let's just get that out there and make sure we don't waste your time. We don't waste the client's time. Again, we want this to be a partnership and a match. This is not like accidentally I tricked you into this job and now you're going to take it. Like we want it to be an exciting engagement for you so that you're excited about the process and ultimately the offer gets accepted. We even tell companies like, our goal is not to put offers out. Our goal is to get offers accepted. And it's the same for the candidates. We don't want to just throw you 5 offers and hope that you take one. We want to find the dream one that you're waiting on pins and needles to get and accept right away because it was a no-brainer for you. So being able to quantify the different categories and then go into detail about them, I think it's a good exercise for you yourself. And then obviously it helps you put us in the right direction too.
I'm super curious with your insight into the hiring demand, essentially what it's looked like from March of last year all the way through now, and kind of what you're seeing through 2021 based on where everything's at right now. I know you mentioned it's a hot market, but I'm curious what it's looked like over the past year for you, and then what it'll look like over the next year, in your opinion.
I have anxiety about how crazy it is right now. Like if anyone's, getting hit up by recruiters, it's because we're getting hit up by companies. Like it's really crazy right now. Looking back into March of last year, there was definitely kind of like a a little bit of a pause, like what does this mean? What do we do? How do we onboard people remotely? Can we onboard people remotely? Like, what about the VPN access? Like, how do we interview people without meeting them? Like, that was really, it sounds so silly now, but in the moment it was like, how do I meet them if, it was a perceived fear that definitely like gave people pause. But I think that the tech industry was the fastest to get over that and kind of come to terms with the fact that most of their job already is remote in deliverables, in one-on-one or doing your own work, I guess, sole contributors. And a lot of companies kind of, I think, were brought to light of like, I already had this one team member remote and he works fine. So what if the other 5 are remote? Like, I don't know. I think the fear kind of dissipated or came to just a reality check of like, this is going to have to happen. So I think also because the market wasn't as affected, because as these companies were becoming more remote, the demand for engineers to keep their companies and their clients' companies up and running, right? Like if you're a mobile developer and now we have to rewrite the platform for a button that has takeout instead of, just where technology stepped in to help with the remote components. I think it gave tech professionals kind of a relief of like, this isn't going away. Our jobs are not in jeopardy. Like we have to keep moving. So honestly, our team billed more last year than 2019, which we wouldn't have thought in March, April, May, but we picked our heads up in January and we've done more business than the year before. So that was a really good testament and exciting. And I think come January, whatever other percent of companies hadn't picked their heads up yet, they sure did fast. And now it's just really hectic. And I think the main heat in the market comes from the remote piece. I've been telling companies over and over and as calmly as I can, but as truthfully as I can, that if you're not working remote, you are competing with all the other companies that are working you're not competing well with the other companies working remote, right? Because we have some clients in San Diego that good for them that they want the candidates local. It's not that I can't understand it, but they're losing out on the Texas, the Virginia, the Boston, the New York, you name it, candidates whose companies are calling their San Diego. You know what I mean? Like they're calling San Diego candidates and the San Diego companies aren't calling the Boston candidates. So it's just creating a lot of stir in the market. And it's not something we can control, but we can certainly adapt. So if the San Diego companies, and a lot of them are, but if they continue to be more flexible with the remote piece and kind of just the reality of what that's going to turn into, they'll be able to match the speed a little bit better. But regardless, thinking of the candidates, I mean, good on them. They've never had a better market than now. 2-3 offers. I know any of my team members listening right now, we do not have a single candidate without 2 or more offers, 2 or more final rounds, 3 or more, 4 or more. I mean, it's like, it's really a time for them to see what's out there. So I guess to that point with how crazy the market is, I would encourage all candidates, like pick your heads up, even if it's just for an hour, look on the job boards, double check your comp. Like this is a time to be competitive for yourself too. So take advantage.
Is there anything else besides being remote, which is definitely been a key differentiator for companies that you see that they're doing benefit-wise to attract candidates?
Yeah, I think one thing that's been a big shift is PTO. And it's still evolving, but if you think about it, like PTO was a time to be unplugged and with family. But now you're kind of doing that in and out on a daily basis. Like, you know what I mean? Like the like unplugged, I don't know. That's kind of been a shift. I've had a couple companies just go to like flex PTO or unlimited PTO because do we really have to talk about the doctor's appointment you have to go on today? Or are you probably just going to go take an hour and do it, So I think that's what's going to come from the remote piece. And I don't think this addresses your question exactly, but I'm really excited to see what attire changes, kind of like business attire. You're in your zip up, I'm in my t-shirt, and we're still getting our work done, right? So I'll be curious to see how that changes in the market as well.
Well, always in San Diego, I always wear shorts to work anyway, so I don't know if it'll change much being from San Diego.
I just think it'll be that much more acceptable.
That's true. That's probably true, especially with the East Coasters. Yeah. I'm on the East Coast now, so my shorts were not as acceptable.
Well, don't tempt me, Jeff. I'll bring you back right back out here. I'll send you some jobs.
Seriously. So the one thing I'm curious about is this is a little outside the realm, but I always have the heart for my junior developers, my bootcamp students, since I used to run one in the market. So I know that at least in my experience, companies will not pay for junior engineers or bootcamp grads. But if you were a bootcamp grad or ones that approach you, kind of how do you advise them to get a job in this particular market? Or do you see any demand in junior engineers, maybe since I was doing that?
Yeah, you are so right about companies not wanting to foot the bill per se. But I still think there's a need for the partnership and kind of facilitating relationships there, because it's still, a hot market and they can slip through the cracks. I think actually more on the candidate side, because they're new to the market and they don't know what they don't know. A great plug that I'm happy to share is that we partner with Tandem Diabetes. And right now they have 6 openings. They're for software tester positions. And we've already filled 4 previous positions. So there were 10 in total, all from a boot camp. UCSC's Extension Bootcamp sent us a ton of new grads. They're all really excited to get their feet wet. They're taking entry-level people. And I know my team member, Maria, is like smiling right now, just thinking like, there's nothing better than giving this new grad an opportunity. They are so excited. They are so humble. They're just, really wanting to get their experience in the door, and nothing better with a publicly traded company like Tandem to be able to say, hey, I spent a year and a half as a software tester, and it pushed me into the mobile team or to the data side of things, or, maybe they decide to go in sales, whatever it is. But Tandem is known for bringing in these types of bright and green team members, right? And really wanting to groom them. So if I could think of a couple more companies like that, I think those are the best ones, to your point, that like know what they're signing up for. They know there's a ramp up period. They're excited to groom the right people. They see the value in starting fresh, versus a company that's just trying to take a cheaper out and go for someone cheaper. So yeah, that's where I'd send them right now, is to Tandem.
I can double down on Tandem Diabetes, because they actually came to a bunch of our demo days back in the day and interviewed a bunch of our students. I think they hired one, but I don't want to quote that and be wrong. But she definitely came out and participated in all of our activities and helped give the grads advice. So
that's great.
We do need more Tandem Diabetes out there for sure. Is there anything else that you want to add about Proven or the process that candidates go through that we did not cover today?
Yeah, I think just it might be helpful for candidates to know, and I don't think this is like a secret, but if it helps to just imagine kind of what a recruiter's desk looks like. When we're looking for talent, we create a Boolean string more often than not, or at least part of our search involves a Boolean string on LinkedIn. It's an and/or statement that picks up the buzzwords and the keywords and the technologies and the skill sets that our companies and clients are looking for. So just because you work with Angular, for example, we might be searching for Angular 6, which is so unfortunate, because it doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to find you. But if it's Angular 6 with no space, or if it's Angular with a space, or Angular JS or Angular.js, I mean, like you can, and I don't want to give the message of like put them all, but maybe if there's a way, and I'm not a LinkedIn expert myself, but if there's a way to put like a section of buzzwords, or I don't know, I hate it when there's a good candidate that just doesn't get recognized or doesn't get, approached because of a black and white search that we're doing. What else? I think it's just, again, just
my takeaway was put the word Angular. That's it.
Yeah. And then we just need to search Angular.
Yes.
The other thing you should do is like not be afraid to give a little bit more context to what you're up to. If you're mentoring people, or if you're working on a particular type of product. We have a client right now who's looking for people with data visualization experience. Actually, shameless plug, their head of engineering will be on here with us next week. So you'll get to hear a lot more about them. But when we do a search for them, we're trying to find people that have worked on dashboards or graphs or pie. I mean, it's just like there's so much more to it than just the technology. So I know it is a little bit more effort on the candidate's part, but honestly, you're just doing it once and then we have it to reference. So I guess just build out your profile as best you can. And then I also learned recently, I'm not as active on the recruiting side as the client side, but that open to work button, apparently you can actually filter our searches by that button. So even if you're passive, I don't know if there's a button for passive versus like active, but if you're open, you should change it because it does show us that. And I am 90% sure. Double check, please. I'd hate to. I think that it hides that button from your current employer. So I wish someone else was on this to like Heather to chime in and be like, yes, that's right. But I'm 90%
sure. It'd be weird if they didn't, right?
Right. And I mean, I guess there's always a chance someone will notice something. I don't know. But it isn't.
If like your employer finds out you press the button, let us know and we can retract this statement.
Yeah, really quickly. Yeah, reach out to me. I'll look at it. We can take it back if we have to. But it's basically just to say, hey, like I'm available, and make it a little easier for the recruiters to find you. And again, like you said, I think partnering up with a recruiter, maybe don't partner up with 5 if you feel like that's going to be overwhelming. But if you partner up with 1 or partner up with 2, and you, again, like we talked about, you let them know your search is passive, we can at least keep you in mind. So build that partnership so it's more of a proactive search when you need it. And honestly, sometimes when you don't need it. Last story I'll tell is that one of my team members is working with a great candidate right now who was honest with her. She said, I don't even know why I responded to your message. I never do. But she's in final rounds and she's loving this company that we've partnered her with. So you never know what could come across your desk. And if you don't put yourself in a position to receive, then you'll just never know.
So I thought of another question real quick, which is, as you get candidates in, especially recently in the hot market, do you find yourself sending more people to the data team or full stack or front end, or is there any particular, or is it kind of just in demand across the board?
We're drowning. It's always going to be heavy on the developer side of things. I think that's a common, position for every company. But we're seeing a lot of database stuff right now. QA, for some reason, goes in crazy waves. And right now we have 4 or 5, actually 7 or 8, if you count the contract.
Everything breaks. They hire QA.
And everybody shifts around and then they have to hire. Yeah. I want to believe it's like something that we're having some crazy impact in the market, but really I think it's our clients. But it's across the board, whether it's mobile, even within mobile, we've got native, we've got React Native, we've got hybrid. Like it's crazy.
Best way to reach out to you is via LinkedIn or your guys' homepage, or what's the best way for them to get the process started?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn.
As a candidate.
I'm on LinkedIn. Like you guys are on your text messages. I mean, maybe even more than that. It's my homepage and everything else. So
what'd you do when it went down yesterday?
You freaked out. Our team was
over. Game's over. Where do
I go? Yeah, my whole team was like, we got 2 or 3 messages like, is it going down for you? Is it down for you? Like, that's funny. You can just imagine what LinkedIn was thinking. But when they're open and operating, which thankfully is now, LinkedIn is great. And then, I have no issues. I love to make sure to put the connection in place for our team members and put you in the right hands.
Awesome. I'll put your LinkedIn link down in the show notes so people can connect with you easily that way.
Cool. Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. A special announcement, which is Kelly is actually going to co-host for the next 9 to 10 episodes with me. So we will grill the CTOs collectively and get to the bottom of what it is that candidates really want to know from the CTOs, but are too scared to ask. So
yeah, I'm really excited for those, by the way. We're really encouraging the CTOs to share a lot about themselves, same as a few of Jeff's previous episodes, to make sure that you really see the type of person that's leading the company and their thought process and their leadership style. And like you said, the tech stack and the needs and everything else. So be sure to tune in.
And you can go to either of our LinkedIns because we're going to post the guests a couple days ahead of time. So if you have questions for those specific CTOs, you can just, I was going to say Slack us because I'm so used to it, but you can just shoot us a thing on LinkedIn or on the post and we will get your questions answered. So looking forward to that as well.
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming on, Kelly.
Have a good one.